Netflix just released its new horror series, Dracula, by the same creators of BBC's Sherlock Holmes. Is it scary? Does it add new layers to this famous character that we're all familiar with? But more importantly, is it any good and is it worth watching? Well, we're going to talk about that and much more. Dracula. The Count Dracula legend transforms with new tales that flesh out the vampire's glorious crimes and brings his vulnerability into the light. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Elliot here from Movie Files, back with a brand new TV review, and this time we're talking about the new horror show, Dracula, on Netflix. It was premiered on Saturday, and I'm here to share my thoughts with you all in this review. But before we dive into it, for those that are new to this channel, definitely consider subscribing to my channel. Hit that bell so you can stay up to date with all my latest TV reviews, movie reviews, unboxings, giveaways, and all the fun things we do on this very channel. And if and when you've seen this new show on Netflix, Dracula, I want to know what you all thought of it. Did you like it? What was your favorite episode? What were the things you didn't like? Let's have some fun discussions in the comments below. So as I've been doing with a lot of my TV reviews in general, but in particularly Netflix shows, I spend the first couple minutes talking about the non-spoiler things, what I liked, what I didn't like, without spoiling anything for you all. And then for those that have seen the show, I jump more into the spoilers on the second half of this video. So starting off with the positives without spoiling anything. First and foremost, this is a character that we all know, Dracula, from either movies, books, comics, TV shows. Very popular character. And I like what this show did. Yes, it has similar tropes to things that we know about vampires in general and things that we know about Dracula, but I like how this show takes certain lores and takes certain mythologies such as the cross, the sunlight, the superstitious things that vampires have, and I like how this show gives us those things, but then they add a little explanation of why vampires, or in particularly Dracula, doesn't like the cross, doesn't like sunlight, why he has these certain things that he can't do, can't be invited into certain places. I love how the show gives those things that we've seen before, but then they add a twist and spin to it and really add some more layer and gives you a better understanding of the character. I like that approach about the character, such as him taking his victims and what it does to him and how he kind of absorbs the victims. I love those little touches and details to this Dracula that I've never seen before, and I really enjoyed those elements of detail there. One of the biggest things, this is a Dracula show, so you expect the gore and the horrific elements, and this show definitely had those elements. This is a TV-14 rating show, but at times it felt R or M for mature. And I'm very surprised that it wasn't, because there's a lot of blood. There's heads being cut off. There's people jumping out of bodies. It's a pretty R-rated show, but it's TV-14. And for fans like me that love Marvel, I hope that Marvel looks at this show and says, hey, we can maybe do some of these things with our characters like Blade and Moonlight. So very impressed by the boundaries that they pushed in the TV-14 rating. Going into the actual episodes without spoiling anything, they're 3 episodes. They're hour and a half, very similar to what I know for people that watch Sherlock. This is a similar format as far as the length of the episodes. But that to me was very unique because, again, I watch a lot of Netflix, as you all know, and I'm used to my 8 to 10 episodes, 30 minutes to an hour episodes, but this being an hour and a half, it really made me feel like I was watching a episode or watching a movie for each episode, which could be a little, discouraging, like, oh, different tones, an hour and a half, what we're going to get here. But I was very impressed by how they kind of told the story and how it felt so cinematic. And that goes also into another positive, the cinematography and the scope and the atmosphere that was created in the show was very, very well done. The creative behind the show, they did a phenomenal job. Costumes, everything, the score was very impressive. So kind of jumping into some more positives before I jump into my cons and then go into my spoiler elements. Some other things I liked, some standout characters definitely were Dracula, played by Claes Bang Claes Bang and Dolly Wells, I believe her name was, playing Agatha. Those two were great. I mean, again, I'll touch on it on my spoiler. There were some characters that did not work for me, but those characters were consistently fantastic whenever they were on screen, in particular Dracula, that was the lead of the show, and I thought that Claes Bang did a phenomenal job as Dracula. I've seen some great Dracula performances in my lifetime because I'm a big horror fan, but this is definitely up there. I thought that this version of Dracula, yes, he was terrifying, he was horrific, he was disturbing, he was very an evil character as we know him to be, but he also had a vulnerable side and had a sense of humor at times. I was very impressed by the performance that we got from Mr. Bang here. And also, like I said, a character who at first, Agatha, who came off a little like one note at times and, had little one-liners, but by the end of the series, If it wasn't for the last episode, which I'll talk about in my cons a little bit, she would have been my favorite character. But that goes to Dracula. But Agatha was a fantastic character. The chemistry that she had with Dracula was off the charts, and I thought that her performance, she went toe-to-toe with Dracula, and I love that element of that character. And those were definitely my two standouts. Kind of transitioning to my cons here. You know, each episode was different. It was an hour and a half, and they each felt like a TV or a movie within itself. But there were moments where the tones and the themes kind of felt a little off-putting. 1 and 2 were very similar, but by the time you get to the third episode, it was a little bit more humor was injected, which I was fine with, but the story that they told in the third episode was not that great to me, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit here. But other things I didn't like, there were some characters that I'll mention in my spoiler, like Jack and Lucy and all that stuff. That didn't even really work for me. But there was also some moments that I love the Dracula character, and I love what they told us in this story, but I would have liked to have dove deeper into Dracula's past and a little bit more of a understanding of where he came from. I would really love that. They tell you certain things, but I would have loved to have seen those within the episodes. But my biggest con is, without a doubt, episode 3. Episode 1 and 2 are fantastic episodes, again, with great horrific moments, terrifying moments, great levity moments with comedy, some really great characters. But episode 3 was a huge letdown. There were some moments that I liked episode 3. Without giving too much away, the switch in time and element, or the switch in locations and things of that nature, were really refreshing, but the characters and the ending fell really flat for me. And that's probably my biggest con with this series, is that third episode was a huge letdown. So, but overall thoughts before I get into my spoilers, this was an enjoyable watch. The two performances were great between Dracula and Agatha. The horrific elements, the gore, the funny moments, the twists and turns to this character that we're all familiar with was really refreshing. But like I said, my biggest thing was that third episode. So that's my overall thoughts without spoiling anything. Now, for those that have seen the series, I'm going to jump into my spoiler elements, so let's jump into it. First and foremost, let's do a quick breakdown on what I liked about the first 2 episodes. First and foremost, I'm not going to lie, guys. The first episode, within like the first 30 minutes or 40 minutes or so, Johnny, as Dracula called him, I didn't like that character. I thought that I don't know if it was the acting or just what he was doing. I felt bad for Johnny, but I just didn't like the performance. But once we get the elements of when Dracula actually comes out and tells him who he is, and we get the whole element with him on top of the castle, that's when I was literally locked into the show. Because when Johnny's telling Agatha, and who was revealed to be Maya at the time, or Mia, I'm sorry, that whole thing, I was like, oh, I kind of like that twist, and that's when the show really kind of had me hooked in. Like I said, the first 30-40 minutes, I was just like, this is kind of boring. I don't really like the performance from Johnny. I love Count Dracula, but Johnny was just like, it's just, he wasn't matching the energy that I was getting from Dracula. But again, once we find out the twist of Agatha and who Agatha really is Van Helsing, that episode, to me, I think episode 1, and definitely episode 2, but episode 1, that last half of the show, the last like 30-40 minutes, were fantastic television. The elements when we get Dracula who comes up to the gate and comes out of the wolf, that was so just gross, but also awesome looking. Again, I thought that the CGI or the costume design and kind of the set pieces were just fantastic, and that was one of my favorite moments. Again, this is where we get some of that levity that I had mentioned in my non-spoiler portion, where it was some funny elements, like when he finally got into the nun's place and he said, who I'm going to kill next, and he throws the head over his shoulder like at a wedding. There's some really great moments and some great funny moments within this show that I really enjoyed. How he was letting the nuns know, oh, do you want me to kill you, or would you like the wolves to kill you? Which I wish we would have got more wolves in this show. I thought that was pretty cool. But it was all that stuff that really worked for me. Agatha, and Mia going into that area where Agatha, didn't want the vampire to be welcomed in, and she thought it was Johnny, and she welcomed Johnny in, and he took off his face. All that stuff was just fantastic, and I love the kind of the cliffhanger that they left us with the whole face-off reveal, and then it leads into the to be continued. I thought episode 1 was fantastic television. Now, transition into the murder mystery ship episode 2, which I thought was 80% really well done. I mean, there was some of those characters that didn't really work for me, like that love triangle, that love between the black guy and the rich kid and Dorothea, whatever her name was. I can't think of the characters' names right now. Those characters did not work for me, but everybody else, else. Like the crew of the ship was really great. The whole murder mystery of how, Dracula was kind of being a detective, and we find out who was actually in cabin 9, which ended up being Agatha. And I love that chess game that they were playing, how it represented what was going on the screen. And Count Dracula was telling him all his things. We find out about his dietary restrictions and how he picks his victims and how he ended up getting all these people that didn't know each other, but they all worked for Dracula. That was a really fantastic episode. And like I said, the only thing that didn't really work for me was that love triangle thing that happened, and how the doctor, and like that scene when the doctor and his daughter and Dracula and the guy that wanted to be with Dracula, his partner or whatever, that was a little flat for me, but everything else in that episode was really, really fantastic. And you talk about cliffhangers. I love the moment where Dracula, he's exploding from the ship, and we see Agatha, she dies, killing Dracula, but he comes on shore, and we find out that we're now in the present day. What a great ending to that show. But now getting to episode 3, I don't want to spend too much time on it because, like I said, that was my least favorite episode. I thought that the idea of him being in the present time was great from the first half of that episode, or kind of the first 20 minutes or so, the moment where he's at the house with Catherine or Kathleen. That was great and funny. And the switch of power where we find out that Agatha, at first I thought it was Agatha, but we find out that it's the great niece of Agatha, played, the character's name was Zoe, played by Dolly Wells, which again, I thought her playing Agatha was fantastic, but the whole Zoe thing did not work for me at all. And we get the whole thing with the lawyer and Dracula using the Wi-Fi and the password. That was funny. But then when we transition into Jack and Lucy and that storyline, that completely hit the floor for me as far as just completely flat. I did not enjoy that storyline at all. Yes, I get it. It's kind of similar to Mia and Jonathan in regards to, how Mia died at the hands of her, her lover, Jack, did she love him? I don't think so. But everything there, and yeah, it was cool to see that moment with the kid. That was like one of the more horrific parts of the show, the kid from the cemetery and following Amaya or Lucy home. But besides that, I thought the ending was terrible. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I thought the ending was so bad. I get it. I get what they were going for. Yes, he finds out his fear, that he thought that he couldn't go in the sun, and his whole thing was he didn't want to die, and that's his biggest fear in life. And he decides to take his life by killing Zoe and drinking her blood because she was dying, and they end up in the sun where he was afraid of the whole time. I get what they were going for. But it doesn't matter. It didn't work for me at all. I don't know if it worked for you all, but I thought the last episode was really bad. Because again, if you compare that third episode with the first 2 episodes, I was thinking, we're going to get this badass moment. He's going to be in the present day. This is the ancestor, or this might be Agatha herself. But no, it's Zoe. So she's going to have some type of vengeance on him. We're going to get maybe, some ancestors from Jonathan's family want to kill Dracula. But it wasn't. It was just a love triangle. It was just a love thing with Lucy and Jack and Dracula, and then throw Zoe in the mix. I wasn't a fan of that third episode. But anyway, guys, that's just kind of my spoiler portion of the review. First 2 episodes were fantastic. Episode 1 is probably my favorite episode, even though I didn't like 40 minutes of it. The rest of that first episode was fantastic. And I really enjoyed episode 2. It was just some of those characters, that love triangle there with the guy and all that stuff, the 2 guys and Dracula. That didn't even work for me. But episode 2 was really great. But episode 3, other than that first 20 minutes, was really bad television for me, especially just loving how the first 2 episodes were so strong. But anyway, it was very entertaining. I still recommend you all checking it out. And I would love to know your thoughts on the first 2 episodes. And if you liked the third episode, that's great. Let me know what were the things you loved about it. But if you're like me and didn't really like the ending and thought it kind of fell flat, let me know your thoughts in the comments. But again, Agatha and Dracula's chemistry was fantastic. I thought that was easily the best part of the show. I thought that the show had a great horrific elements. It pushed the boundaries of TV-14. It was great writing. It was great comedy moments as well in the show. And the show just looked gorgeous. And again, it felt so cinematic. And I love those elements. But I'm one of those people where if you don't give me a satisfying ending, that leaves a really bad taste in my mouth. And I'm interested to see if they do any more seasons of this show. I mean, they can't because Dracula died at the end, right? But I would like to see them tackling other characters like a Wolfman or an Invisible Man, or see what they do there. But I enjoyed 2 of the 3 episodes. That's a good rating there. But anyway, that's just my opinion. The unsatisfied ending, but overall a good enjoyment and a good experience that I saw this show. So that's just my thoughts. Let me know what you all thought of Dracula on Netflix. Let me know your pros, your cons, all your favorite moments, your favorite characters, your least favorite characters. Let's have some fun discussions down there. Like I said up top, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and hit that bell so you can stay up to date with all my videos. I got my Top 10 horror movies of the decade, top 10 comic book movies of the decade on my channel right now. My top 10 TV shows of 2019. I have a Just Mercy review, and then coming pretty soon, my top 10 movies of 2020, most anticipated movies that I'm excited for, and my top 10 movies of 2019 coming out pretty soon. Thank you all for watching this review. Got many more reviews coming soon. Again, I appreciate all the support. Thank you guys again for watching this video, and we'll see you on the next one.